strategy was the demand side of the Bitcoin story for 5 or 6 years. It was the Saylor era. And now vulnerabilities in the strategy have been exposed.
The hedge funds are after them.
Right? They've got, 600 and something thousand Bitcoin. Okay. So let's choke this company so that they've got to cough up some of that Bitcoin, which they're now doing.
Do you think Saylor's been a net positive for Bitcoin?
He has said a couple of things that go against the ethos of Bitcoin. Bitcoin is going through kind of like reverse archeology. It got to the Wall Street pocket of money. Anyone in that band of financialization went through the exact same learning curve as everyone in the previous ages of Bitcoin. So the suit coiners essentially recreated the ICO market.
I do a lot of the AI policy in El Salvador, and the AI community is way more cypherpunk than a lot of the Bitcoin community.
What do you think is going to be the most misunderstood part of what has happened in El Salvador?
The idea where El Salvador has gone through the fourth turning and is the first country in the world to start up into the first turning.
Max and Stacy, Stacy and Max. It's good to have you guys here. It's been a little while since we've seen each other in the flesh. I feel like the last time was El Salvador, but now I'm not actually sure. The years are running together for me now, and time moves strangely in Bitcoin, in the Bitcoin universe, I think. But it's good to see you guys.
Yes, it's good to see you too. And I'm not sure where we saw each other, but it was definitely at a Bitcoin conference. I could probably guarantee you that.
I think it was backstage in Nashville or Vegas.
That sounds. Wouldn't have been Vegas. We got nixed from the MC slots for Vegas. No hard feelings whatsoever. I think they wanted perhaps somebody a little bit less inflammatory. Who can say? But no hard feelings whatsoever. Honestly, MCing is so much darn work that it's like it's nice to be just an attendee or a speaker. Like it's a welcome change. But yeah, we were just talking backstage. Carl and I, the first time we went to El Salvador was 2022. We had saw you guys while we were there. I remember had a lovely dinner. Archie was there as well when he was still a full NIM.
Yeah,
just good times. It's wild that's been 4 years, because the last time we went back to El Salvador was, I guess, it was start of last year. We weren't able to go this year. And even just after a couple of years, it's amazing to me how much changed. Like, you could already feel it when we were there in 2022. You could feel that there was something happening. And then going back there again a few years later, and we've been there 3 times now. 2 were in the same first year, months apart, because we couldn't stay away. But it's kind of incredible. And it's one of the things I want to focus on with you guys a bit today, because it seems that in so much of the world there's a lot of nihilism, there's a lot of despair, there's a lot of there's a dearth of hope, and it seems like El Salvador sort of has those things in plentiful supply right now. And so, maybe just as like a starting point, because I think there's a lot of misunderstandings about what's happening in El Salvador, what has been happening, what will be happening. It's just kind of like when the history books are written, so to speak. What do you think is going to be the most misunderstood part of what has happened in El Salvador?
Well, just first of all, as we were talking briefly before air, the idea where El Salvador has gone through the fourth turning and is the first country in the world to start up into the first turning is true. It's palpable. We've been talking about this for a couple of years. El Salvador had 40 years of bad times. It had civil war, gang war. And then the President Bukele arrives in 2019, and strong men create good times. So that's important to note. And now El Salvador has become the shining city on the hill. It's become the beacon of freedom. It's taken the place of countries, let's say, like the United States, that were the go-to country for people seeking freedom and free speech and opportunity. That country is now El Salvador. And so we're seeing it in the migration. We're seeing it in the GDP, which is now exploding higher. We're seeing it in culture. All kinds of cultural phenomenon are happening where the generation Bukele, which have been the beneficiary of the education programs, that Stacy has architected, like Kubo Plus and Kubo AI and others. Now they're second, third generation years in these programs, and the students are now teaching the new code array of the new students. So it has a compounding effect. And so this generation in El Salvador is wildly hopeful, wildly optimistic. And that message is being broadcast all over the world, right?
The history of the world is but the biography of great men. Right?
Amen.
And that is what you're seeing right now. El Salvador is in the headlines because of President Bukele. El Salvador would not be in the headlines as it were today were it not for President Bukele. The only headlines that it ever made before President Bukele was for massive corruption, massive violence. When you met us in El Salvador 4 years ago, it was before the war against the gangs had started, I think. And I'm sure
just after, maybe, or like,
yeah,
it was very, very soon. I think it was literally just after he had made some of the initial moves, which was like, it was fresh. It was very fresh.
It was very fresh, but nevertheless, when you came to El Salvador 4 years ago, or even 3 years ago, if you had Googled El Salvador, well, it would have been very scary. The Google results were don't go, basically. It's the most dangerous place on earth, homicide capital of the world, horrible things. Now, go Google it. Like, you don't see that anymore, right? Like, you see a country transformed by President Bukele. So that's the fourth turning. I mean, it of course, coming out of the fourth turning into the first turning is great men. Is like, that's when they appear, right? Right when they're needed. Cometh the hour, cometh the man. Like, all these great men always arrive when humans need them. And that's partly because, it's the hard times that create the strong men. And the strong men arrive to create the good times. So he comes out of, he was born into a civil war in El Salvador, followed by the gang war, the gang occupation. So those hard times in El Salvador for 40 years, which is about one of these cycles, right? They created a strong man. And, it wasn't those hard times, his parents, the wisdom taught to him by his parents and his own character, made him a great man of history. I think, 500 years from now, they'll still speak his name.
It is wild because exactly what you mentioned in terms of like searching for just whatever you could find about El Salvador before we went. Like, we did that, and we had like friends and family asking us, like, are you guys sure you should be going there? Like, isn't it?
Yeah.
And we were like, no. It was, and this was still early in this, like right on the heels of him making these initial moves. But we were like, no. It was the murder capital of the world, but it's okay now. Like, there's a new guy, there's a new sheriff in town, so to speak, and he's run this incredible campaign to actually get the gang, call it crazy, like enforce the law. Like, I mean, like this wild concept where you put violent criminals behind bars, which is apparently, and like, this is the crazy contrast that I think anybody who is paying attention sees right now. It's like, okay, there are plenty of people who may have issues with Bukele for whatever reason. I don't know if they're always the most well thought out. Probably plenty of legitimate grievances too. I'm not here to whatever. My point being, I don't know how you can look at what has happened in El Salvador and then contrast that to what is happening in most other places in the so-called developed world, where the law is not being enforced, where violent criminals are allowed to return to the streets to commit violent crimes again and again and again. I mean, how many cases of this in America have we seen just recently where it's like, oh yeah, this was his 67th arrest. And you're like, why was he on the street? What are you talking about? This is insane. Like, we know that a very small percentage of the population commits a disproportionate amount of the violent crime. When you put those people away and deal with them and enforce the law, that problem just like magically goes away. But apparently this is like somehow an unpalatable thing for a lot of folks in the, again, so-called developed world to admit. And it's like, why is that? How have we gotten to the point where it's a controversial thing to say violent criminals should go to jail and the law should be enforced? How can we have gotten to a place in society where that is the case?
Well, look, I mean, you talk about following the law. The reason why crime-ridden cities in America are the way that they are is because the people there are following the law, and the law allows for recidivism. It allows for these repeat offenders to go in and out of the system. The courts are not effective, and there's constant lobbying by certain elements in the political class who seem to favor a society that is functioning under the rubric of total chaos. And in El Salvador, it was the president's decision to understand that El Salvador was essentially a failed state. Every single institution in the country had failed. The court system, the judicial system, the police, the press. It was all one big failure, except for, I guess you could say, the military was still in pretty good shape. So he took it upon himself to exercise and go after not just picking a few criminals here and there. He decided to eliminate the entire gang class, the entire 80,000 gang members in the country who were terrorizing the population and had taken over the entire country. And in so doing, unleashed an unbelievable rebirth and renaissance by getting rid of this gangocracy that was essentially ruling the country. And he did so very strategically I'm sure the story will come out how he was able to eradicate the gangs by very savvy and strategic methodologies. And it's a fascinating story. And so that's, part of what we're talking about here is that there's got to be a will of the people and the political class to eradicate themselves from an overlord, violent criminal class that's ruling.
Yeah. So I am going to go further into that point that you've just made there. But first, I want to tell all the people out in Nostr watching this that the truth is, I believe that Walker has a filter on this because I see he looks super tan and we look super white. So I don't know what's up.
I spend a lot of time in my garden.
Yeah, we're working, even though we live right near the equator. Right now, we're actually in North Carolina, so
nice.
We're not in El Salvador at the moment. That's why I have to wear my El Salvador cap to remember where I come from. But what Max is also pointing out there is ties into what you were talking about, the nihilism, because when plunder becomes a way of life for a group of men in a society, over the course of time, they create for themselves a legal system that justifies it and a moral code that glorifies it. Now, that is Frederick Bastiat, the great French statesman, who wrote in that essay, The Law, and argued that the only purpose for a government, the only legitimate reason for a government is to protect life, liberty, and property. Now, so a government exists only legitimately to protect life, liberty, and property, because each human has the right to life, liberty, and property. In the U.S. Constitution, we said pursuit of happiness instead of property. There's a long story behind that, how they're kind of the same thing. Now, think of that nihilism that has undermined society for the past 40, 50 years. Well, 50 years, let's say, since the beginning of the U.S. dollar system, all fiat system. They've created for ourselves like a moral code that glorifies the plunder that's going on by the government without doing any of the basic function that the only one purpose for the government is to for the people collectively, as your human rights, you gather together as a society to protect yourselves, your life, liberty, and property from bad guys. That's the one thing that the government no longer does in many areas of the country, in many cities in particular. So they've totally abdicated the one reason for their existence, the one legitimate reason for their existence. And the nihilism is is part of that process of, over the course of time, they have created this, legal system that justifies it and a moral code that glorifies it, where the glorification comes through these sort of woke mindsets, these woke ideas, this, sometimes you'll see on the news, like somebody who's just had everything stolen, their house burned down by some like vagrant, like shooting up heroin or fentanyl outside, and then they burn down their home, and they're like, I'm okay with this because, they were somehow a minority group, or so, like they were transgender, and I'm okay with this. I don't want him to be punished, or her, or whatever the person is. And you're like, okay, wait, like this is the actual system of the glorification of the plunder, right? Because you've literally just been plundered and you're glorifying it. You're like, oh, well, that was pretty cool, right? I don't want to stop it. And you're like, wait, this is all messed up. But I think it's just a process. It started 54 years ago in 1971. But probably earlier than that. They just want you to have no hope, right? There's no hope to fix it because it's so profitable for the plunderers. And so, like, let's not fix it. Let's make sure that nobody fixes it. And part of that process of glorification is how they instill the nihilism.
Mm-hmm.
Wish you could access cash without selling your Bitcoin? Ledn makes that possible. And the global leader in Bitcoin-backed lending, Ledn, has introduced their lowest rates ever. No complexity, no fine print. The larger the loan, the lower the rate. These new rates apply to all new loans, refinances, and renewals. You'll see the rates up front before you apply. The new lower rates come with Ledn's gold standard protection. Your Bitcoin remains custodied and is never lent out for interest. Perfect 8-year track record of keeping clients' assets safe. Auto top-up, LTV alerts, and partial repayments to keep you in control. Repay whenever you want with zero penalties or monthly payments. Ledn's perfect $10 billion plus track record through every market cycle in the last 8 years speaks for itself. Don't choose between a great rate and the safety of your Bitcoin. Get both at Ledn. Check out your rate by using their loan calculator at ledn.io/walker. That's LEDN.io/walker. If you're hodling Bitcoin personally or for a business, here's the uncomfortable truth. You probably don't have insurance. Most policies exclude Bitcoin, and the ones that don't, they only pay you back in fiat. What's the point of that if you need to claim a loss when numbers go up? That's not insurance, that's liquidation. Now there's another option, BDIC. They're building an insurance marketplace on the Bitcoin standard. 1 Bitcoin lost equals 1 Bitcoin paid. They've integrated with Liana Business for enterprise self-custody with personal wallet coverage options coming later this year. If you care about protecting your Bitcoin as Bitcoin, sign up for the waitlist at bdic.io/walker. That's bdic.io/walker. Insurance on the Bitcoin standard. Blockstream Jade Plus delivers robust security with fully open source hardware and software. Its unique genuine check feature ensures your device is authentic, giving you ultimate peace of mind. With versatile connectivity options including Bluetooth, USB-C, built-in camera, and SD card, Jade Plus offers unparalleled flexibility in managing your Bitcoin. Whether you prefer wireless convenience or air-gapped security, Jade has you covered. Its innovative design features a durable metal case, a bright 1.9-inch color screen, and intuitive navigation buttons that make managing your Bitcoin straightforward and enjoyable. Jade Plus also supports secure, air-gapped transactions via QR code signing using the Jade Link storage device, keeping your Bitcoin safe without compromising convenience. Visit store.blockstream.com and use my coupon code WALKER for an exclusive 10% discount on your Blockstream Jade Plus. Protect your Bitcoin, sleep better, stack harder.
Yeah, and the irony is, and this is pointed out by the president often, is that during the period, let's say during the gang wars, where they became the murder capital of the world, and innocent civilians and people were being ritualistically tortured and burned, and babies were, I don't want to go in the details. It's too horrific. But where were the human rights groups?
Yeah.
Where was the outcry? Who spoke up for these people? And we didn't hear a peep from anybody. So then President Bukele comes along and says, we have to protect the human rights of our citizens first. They're the ones who should be the beneficiary of human rights protection. And so he went after the criminals and the murderers. And then we finally heard from the human rights groups.
I mean, it was so obvious. It was literally, have you ever seen that film Idiocracy? Like this guy comes back 50 years in the future.
Yeah.
And he's like, becomes a president because he's like, figures out, oh, you don't use Gatorade on the lawn. Let's just use water. And people are like, wow, you're so smart. How did you know how to do that? And it's just like, we've become at that point where it's total idiocracy after 50 years of celebrating the plunder and glorifying it, that we're like, oh my God, how did the murder rate fall? And you're like, dudes, I put the murderers in prison. Like, it's not difficult.
Right. So the human rights groups were completely invisible until the president went after the gangsters. And then suddenly they appeared en masse saying, oh, we need to protect the human rights of the murderers. But they were nowhere to be found during the period when the murdering was taking place. So that's a glorification of murder. From the World Bank, there was a report when the president began his war on the gangs that said, like, you have to be careful because the gangs account for more than 25% of the economy of El Salvador. And if you get rid of them, your economy will shrink by 25%. And the president rightfully told them to buzz off. He accepted that there might be or could be a drawdown in GDP. Miraculously, there was no real drawdown in GDP. They managed to grow even through COVID and even through the gang war. The economy did continue to expand. And now with the gang war and the COVID behind them, you see the GDP expanding by 4%, 5%. Soon it's going to be over 10%. This really is Singapore of the West. This is the new really miracle economy story, and it's taking shape right now. It's really starting to boom in El Salvador.
It's crazy too. This reminds me, the President Bukele shared that chart, and I gave it a quote tweet, and he was nice enough to retweet that, which was a nice day. It happened on Father's Day too. It was a nice little Father's Day.
And Elon Musk also tweeted you.
What a wild 24 hours for social media for me. That was pretty nuts. But he tweeted out this chart that was, murder rate versus incarceration rate in El Salvador from 2000 to 2024. And it's like, shockingly, the incarceration rate goes up and the murder rate goes down almost to zero. And it was in response to somebody tweeting, 1% of people account for 63% of all violent crimes. And 0.2% of people ever commit murder. 67% of all murders are committed by people with prior arrests. So it's like, and he said, it's a pretty, very simple concept really. But this is the kind of the larger point that really does make you a bit. I'm not a nihilistic person. I'm a very optimistic person. I'm very optimistic because of the things that I know, the things I pay attention to, the people that I am privileged enough to talk to. But you can see why a lot of people will drift into nihilism because they see that, look, we have these really obvious problems. It seems like to any logical thinking person that there's pretty obvious solutions that everyone knows. But for some reason, talking about those solutions makes you a bigot or a racist or a xenophobe or insert whatever.
Conspiracy theorist.
Conspiracy theorist, yeah. Only to be, today's conspiracy theory is 6 months from now's news or whatever it is. It's just, it really does kind of feel like the idiocracy moment though, Stacey, as you said, where It's like, this is all just, it just feels so stupid. Like, just fix the problem. Do your one job. Protect people from the plunderers. Enforce the law. And that's it. Like, but that's just a bridge too far, apparently. I don't know.
Part of that whole nihilism, of course, is that this is by design. The people who benefit the most from the plunder, whether they're the quintillionaires next to the money printer or in the seats of power in DC or like the deep state, who knows where they live. There is part of that design that's well documented about modern art, right? Right? Like to how, like they don't even, like they train you to even disrespect beauty, right? Anything, like nothing could save you from the despair that they are the only way out, right? Like there's no hope, no beauty, no peace, no, everything is a hamster wheel of despair is what they want you to believe and want you to feel.
There's no God.
Yeah.
Right. And there's no faith. And it's Maoism, essentially. Right. It's socialism. It's communism. It's authoritarianism. And in El Salvador, the president has a 94% popularity, and it's rising. So it's their country, and the people are overwhelmingly happy about what's going on there. And if some liberal types in the United States or what have you are unhappy about it, it's not really their business. It's not their fight to fight. The people of El Salvador are voting for the president. They'll vote for him overwhelmingly in the next election. And at a 94%, soon to be 95% popularity rating, that means that many of the family members of the gang members who are now in prison are for the president. Right? And it's like their own families aren't supporting them. I mean, that nobody, why would anyone support this group internally in the country after 20 years of a terror campaign? And so this, the amount of hand-wringing and pearl clutching that goes on by folks that haven't been there and don't understand the dynamics is comically misplaced. It's just absurd. People need to go there and get their boots on the ground and see what's happening to really understand that this really is Renaissance 2.0. This is the first country out of the fourth turning into the first turning. This is the shining city on a hill.
It's interesting too. You brought up like this. What we see now is very much like Maoist, socialist, communist, like. And so, quote, socialism or democratic socialism, as they like to brand it in the U.S. now. Like we all, this is just a transitional phase to communism, right? And communism has killed 100 million plus people in the past century. But apparently, it's still a politically palatable thing to say that, like, proudly proclaim you're a communist. I mean, many university professors and like people held in high regard, highly regarded people, can just comfortably come out and say you're a communist, which is crazy to me because it's a murderous ideology based on theft, based on the destruction of society and destruction of personal property. But somehow it's okay to just come out and say that, yeah, but we're this is what we want. Like, aren't you empathetic? Aren't you morally superior like us? Because that's what a lot of it comes down to. But I'm curious because you look at El Salvador and what Bukele is doing. He is doing a lot for the citizens, like not just cleaning up the gangs, but like in terms of the public works projects, all the different things, the things that like the socialists and the commies claim that only socialism or communism can do, but he's doing it without that. So how is that possible? Can you explain it to the commies out there?
Well, there's a quote he always says, something along the lines of the money is enough if nobody steals it. So that's the thing about communists and socialists. It's they have huge salaries. All those NGOs have massive salaries. If they receive $1 billion a year from George Soros, about, say, of the billion, maybe 50 million might make it to the people they're helping, because the rest gets plundered by them and salaries and cars and drivers and houses and all this sort of stuff, right? So that's why there's money to do things in El Salvador, because he's not taking it. There are no NGOs. We're doing it ourselves. We're fixing our country ourselves, right? We don't need the people who have, $1 million salaries to dispense the money so that they feel great about themselves. And then they use that as a, part of their resume to then become a senator or something like that or whatever. So I think that's the simple answer, is that the money is enough when nobody steals it. So that's his basic philosophy about governance and building infrastructure, is that there's plenty of money there, and there always has been. It's just that it had been stolen for so many years, partly because of the nihilism of the ruling class as well in El Salvador before President Bukele. Is like, I mean, all the NGOs were stealing most of the stuff, right? And so why not them, right? Because like none of it was going to be allowed to get down to the ground anyway, so they might as well steal whatever is left. And that's what they did. They just stole whatever was left that the NGO class had not first stolen. So I think, again, like over the course of time, these sort of systems, these moral codes develop to justify and glorify what they're doing. And the NGO class is a perfect example of glorifying their own plunder. They glorify it, that like, we're so amazing. Like, I feel so amazing for the AOC photo of her like crying in front of the border wall. That's the sort of propaganda.
The president just celebrated the completion of this brand new hospital. It's the finest hospital probably in all of Central America for sure, possibly in Latin America. It's and it was done entirely from the existing budget that was a line item in the budget for hospital that was on the books for a while. The previous governments had talked about doing something with this hospital for 20 years. They never did. It's an historic building. He restored the architecture. He restored the building. He expanded the building. He brought in 40 or 50 or 80 kidney dialysis machines. It's got an incredibly array of modern hospital equipment, and he did it all on budget and under time. And he's done it with now, stadiums, with convention centers, all
hydro plants, the dams.
He's redone the historical center of San Salvador. So it's become a beacon. People come here. It's like Times Square of Central America. You could get 1 million, 2 million people visiting there during a holy holiday week or something like that. And they're out dancing in the streets. The Salvadorans are literally dancing in the streets at night at 3 o'clock in the morning. The library is open 24 hours a day. They're in front of the library, which is lit up brilliantly and beautifully, dancing with guys on the street playing, saxophone or what have you. And they're literally like, it's like Liberation Day post World War II, where people were celebrating and happy and dancing in the streets. It's like that in El Salvador and San Salvador every day.
I can't wait to go back again. Also, mainly for the pupusas, of course, because
and Bitcoin Historico, BitcoinHistorico.com. Everybody should come check it out. Speaking of Centro Historico, we're in the center in the revitalized National Palace, which just only opened like a month before our first inaugural Bitcoin Historico. And so come see us. We have a whole, go to the website and you'll see all the amazing speakers that we'll have there. It's an OG conference experience, an OG Bitcoin conference experience, before all the ICOs, before all the Bitcoin treasury companies, before all that stuff. And what we talked about, all the first principles, all the, self-custody, owning Bitcoin, holding Bitcoin, not exposure to Bitcoin. So this is the sort of conference you'll find in Bitcoin country at bitcoinhistorico.com.
I think of President Bukele in a lot like Steve Jobs. Like Steve Jobs when he did his annual meeting.
I have my Steve Jobs outfit on.
Yeah.
There you go.
Turtleneck, right? And, he'd give the new iPhone pitch or the new product pitch. And then he'd say at the end, oh, and just one more thing, and he'd whip out the iPhone or something miraculous. The president is this type of mindset where he just doesn't want to improve people's lives. He's not satisfied with making the country a standout in Central America. He literally wants to blow people's minds. Like a Steve Jobs. It's like Steve Jobs meets John F. Kennedy, on the political side. And you put those two elements together and you end up with somebody who's got the capabilities, who's got the charisma, who's got the intelligence, who's got the support, who attracts.
Well, that's
talent.
like when you mentioned John F. Kennedy, it's like the Apollo program, right? Like he treats everything like an Apollo program, and that we're in this as a nation together, and never let anyone tell you that El Salvador is too small to be big, to be great. Where El Salvador is going is to the place we want to be. And, and you approach every single task you do as you rebuild El Salvador with the same sort of passion and same sort of desire for excellence, whether it's a pedestrian bridge, a huge bridge for the cars over a big giant gorge, or it's, the dam, the hydro dam, or a big, huge project like the metro cable that we're just putting in. We just put the first tower in for the metro cable that they're going to build over the next year and a half. So he does everything with that sort of passion. Every single thing he does is done with passion. So you see that in the results in El Salvador, and you felt it in just those early days, as you pointed out, that there was the first days of the new El Salvador, right? Like once the plunderers were taken out of the equation, i.e. the corrupt politicians first and the gang members next. So once they were all out, and then the corrupt money and the corrupt money mindset, the fiat mindset, brought in Bitcoin country mindset. So then we were ready to build a new country, and you saw the results were very fast, very early on. And Walker, you and Carla must come to El Salvador, come to Bitcoin Historico, and see for yourself the changes that have happened in the past 3 years since you've been there.
We cannot wait to come back. Also, Max, can you move your mic just a touch closer? I had a nice nice listener.
How's that?
That's perfect. Shout out to Gwydion in the Noster chat who was looking at the audio levels very closely.
Okay, thanks for that tip. But the president also has an aesthetic. He believes in the public should be the public spaces should be more beautiful than the private spaces. Like, he's not interested in individuals aggregating great wealth as much as he is in the public spaces generating awe and beauty and inspiring people. And that's something you don't find.
Ancient Greece or ancient Rome.
Well, it's like we don't build really beautiful things anymore, right? It's just kind of like a trend where it's from brutalism onward, basically, it's like everything just feels kind of brutalist and devoid of any emotion or things don't inspire you, right? What inspires you? The old buildings, the old beautiful buildings where you say, look at the stonework, look at what they did by hand. How, look at the toil that went into this thing. It's not just the product of it, but it's the fact that the people actually built it and wanted to build it. It's both of those things, that duality. And there's a dearth of that these days.
Well, that's that nihilism, that the absence of hope and the absence of joy and beauty. And so they want you to sneer at those who want excellence, those who strive for beauty, those who want those things. Those are the most mocked people. Like Elon Musk is constantly mocked. And all he does is he strives to get to Mars, get to the moon, do amazing, extraordinary things, massive ideas, right? And people just mock him, right? So that's a control mechanism to try to keep the ordinary person from wanting much, from wanting better things, from wanting beauty, from wanting low time preference, for peace, joy, family, love, all the important things. Instead, you have a world of incels and transgenders and fentanyl abuse and zombie people on the streets of Philadelphia and stuff like that. None of that is beautiful at all, right? It's not beautiful.
It's funny you brought up Elon, because I was actually just thinking right before you said that, you were reading my mind clearly, that it seems to be a very similar reaction that you see with people who really go after Bukele and people who really go after Elon.
Yes.
It's almost, I don't know if I'm sure everybody has their very legitimate reasons, sure. But what I see is it seems to be this attempt, these are two men who, you can say what you want about them, but they are proving that really incredible revolutionary things are possible, and that it's okay for us to have nice things and to strive for something more. To Elon, it's he's trying to take us to the stars, and it's why do men climb mountains? Why do we want to go to the stars? Because we must, right? Because we must. And we need things to believe in. We need things to be able to show our children, show the next generation, and say, look what they did. Isn't that amazing?
Greatness.
People, isn't that truly great?
Yeah. Well, Make America Great Again. Remember, that was President Trump's campaign motto on the first in 2016. So Make America Great Again. And what did it, that sparked like this wave of total insanity in the United States, because you cannot make America great again. How dare you? That's ridiculous. That's clownish. That's buffoonish. Like, don't aspire to anything greater than what we have. Instead, become transgender. Instead, become fentanyl addicts. Instead, become like all of this degradation of public life. That's the word that sparked the insanity. We were on a 4-year long, well, actually like 8-year long nightmare, a national nightmare, inspired by that, by the word great. They didn't want America to be great. Just uttering those words caused them to lose their minds. That Trump derangement syndrome was really about greatness derangement syndrome. They didn't want the people to want to be great.
It's wild too, because the same people who would say like, well, you know, they would counter that by saying, well, America's already great, are the same people who'd be like, yeah, but America's actually the worst, and it's the most racist, and it's the most, you know, whatever. It's the absolute, it's the bottom of the barrel. It's terrible. For some reason, everybody still is trying to come to America, and, you know, America has given me the platform to actually say these things freely, unlike a lot of other countries. But no, it's the worst. But also, well, it's still great. But like the mental gymnastics required to take issue with
it's not a
that
place. It's a state of mind. It's not a place. Yeah. It's a state of mind. So You're never great. You always need to be greater and better. Like every single day, you never get to that point, right? Like there's no there. So it's about a state of mind. Just like Bitcoin is a state of mind. It's a mindset. It's a vibe. It's a way of being, a way of living. And so it's not like an absolute thing. Like there is, great is like a word, right? That we understand as how we want to feel, and how we want to feel better. We want to feel like to enjoy beauty and enjoy the innovation and creation and the things that we can invent, like the things God gave us, and explore the world and explore the stars and behold this with awe, all these things around us that were given to us by God, humanity, our invention, all these things. So like all those things are the opposite of what they try to seek to control you with through nihilism. They would rather you not have any awe about anything. They want you to sneer. They want you to mock. They want you to troll. They want you to just have total cynicism and despair.
Yeah, America is an idea, and that idea is about freedom. And so it's an attempt. The Constitution, the Bill of Rights, is an attempt to codify a governing body that would ensure maximum freedom of speech, freedom of expression, etc., for the widest portion of the population. And so over the last few decades, the cynicism has creeped in, and so the curtailment of those freedoms has crept in, principally freedom of speech. One of the great things about Elon that people recognize now is that his acquisition of X, now X, formerly Twitter, was really saving free speech. That's something a founding father of the America would have done. You know, like free speech is essential, and he guaranteed that it was alive by making that purchase. And El Salvador, that's, I think, that idea that's embodied in the documentation, the documents, the founding documents of America. You can find that in El Salvador, and that's why it's so many people who go there find that breathing the fresh air of freedom, you know, and so many people who visit, they end up moving there. And that's really on the cutting edge. That's really the place now where you will have find most of freedom there. And so this is what El Salvador has taken the place of the United States in a lot of ways. And its relative small size is turned into an advantage. The incredibly dynamic president running the country is a once in 500-year type leader. And it's all falling down to the bottom line because there's layers and layers of corruption have been removed. Layers and layers of gangs are gone. So people, when they're working, they know that they're contributing, as Stacy was saying, to a greater project, which is the greater El Salvador, and they're happy to do so.
We hold these truths to be self-evident. all men are created equal, right? Like you started the show with the so obvious thing, right? The 1% of the population, they're the murderers. We'll just lock them up so the people who are not murderers can live freely. So there's so many truths of all humans, all of humanity. Every baby comes out smiling, filled with love and joy and optimism. Like you don't encounter like a miserable, filled with despair baby unless you forget to change their diaper for a few hours, right? Like, but the fact is, like, we all are born with awe. Like that's why people love looking at babies, right? They're like, wow, everything is like incredible. Wow, like you have a watch on. Oh my God, wow. It's like that's the human nature that they try to destroy. The fact is, the idea of America is a universal idea, and it's a universal idea that it was expressed by the great man of history, who is President Bukele, when he said something like, where El Salvador is going is to the place we want to be. The same could be said of the US, of France, of Italy, of wherever you are. You, the people, always, where you want to be is where you will be. But it's by design, your design. You have to make the choices. You have to do something about it. And they don't want you to do something about it. That's why when President Trump, or then candidate Donald Trump, said, make America great again, that exposed, wow, the panic and fear in the deep state and the ruling. I mean, they literally came out on camera on the news and told you. I think it was Chuck Schumer said something like, yeah, the CIA has 7 ways to to take this guy down. They're going to come after him. It's like, why? Like, just because we're not supposed to be great, we shouldn't want to be great? Like, who are you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the freedom to be who you are. Individual sovereignty is certainly a concept well known in the Bitcoin space. And it's also now becoming a concept in the AI space as well. And El Salvador is developing a freedom stack, which includes security, Bitcoin, AI, education,
health,
right?
Infrastructure,
so
energy.
It's all they all work together. They're all complementary to each other. And they're all creating as a sense of freedom it could exceed the greatest period in the United States history in terms of what it was able to achieve for individual freedom. You could see it eclipsed by what's happening in El Salvador, a new high watermark for government, for a governance model that encourages individuals in a safe, secure way to pursue their dreams and hopes. And achieve them. I think what we're seeing right now in El Salvador.
I think, Walker, I want to tie a few of the things we've talked about together here, because I know we're live streaming on Nostr and there's like 5 or 6 people there, including Matt Odell had been there. And I want to bring this back to this notion of this narrative that we're talking about, because narratives matter and people talking to each other matter. Bitcoin conferences mattered before all of this like corporatization of it. Why it mattered was that we were meeting in person and communicating to each other and, building that confidence of having these crazy ideas. It's that famous classic, the one leader, the guy goes up dancing crazy, but the important one is the second guy who comes up and dances crazy with him, and then the whole crowd is dancing crazy. Well, we were dancing crazy, right, in Bitcoin up until then. Like Nostr comes along, Matt Odell abandons Bitcoin Twitter, then all the memers abandoned it, and all we had were the suit coiners. And then we were in a period of remember, well, you probably were not alive then, but there was a period of time when Steve Jobs was fired from Apple. And why? Because he was a crazy person, right? So they got rid of the visionary and they installed the suits. The suits were going to, now that this company was a little bit bigger, that they were going to make it legitimate. And they didn't understand who the owners, the people using the Apple, the Macintosh were. They didn't understand because they only understood Wall Street, and they understood the numbers, and they understood what Wall Street wanted, right? This is how you make it legitimate. This is how you legitimize Apple. Well, we had the suit coiners for the same time, and they took over the narrative, just like, what happened in that period of time. How many years? It was like 4 years when Steve Jobs was fired from Apple, and then the company almost went bankrupt, of course, and Steve Jobs had to return. So just like Matt Odell, I'm saying Matt Odell is like Steve Jobs of
He's
the
going to take that
narrative.
one straight to the bank.
No, but like that's important that the right people are part of the conversation. Removing yourself from the conversation is not a clever way to, change the world.
And I think he agrees with that now too.
Yes.
I just had him on the show actually, last week, and he had like a mea culpa. He's like, look, I was wrong. I misjudged this. I thought this was the better path. It was not. Like and credit where credit is due for, saying, look, yeah, I made a wrong call. I'm back now. I don't think he can get his original Odell handle back though, sadly. They're trying to charge him like a crazy amount of money for it, which is just kind of like, kind of funny. It's like, oh, you got to buy your own name back. But I want to talk about a number of the things that El Salvador is doing on the educational front and with some of these initiatives, because I think that's really interesting. In an age where even like in the United States of America, even though we spend a ton on education, even though people say we don't spend much on education, we spend plenty per student. Again, problem is it's being stolen by administrators and bureaucrats in between. Literacy rates are declining in major public schools and major metropolitan areas. But I want to talk, before we kind of get into that a little bit, I do want to talk about the Bitcoin suit coin dynamic right now, because you guys have been obviously in Bitcoin, for as long as anyone, right? For a long time. You were educating people about Bitcoin back on RT back in the day. You've done so much to orange pill so many people. Not least of which was, I believe, coined the term orange pill, if I'm not mistaken. Among many other things. Like, you guys have done an incredible service to so many people by opening up their eyes to Bitcoin. And I'm curious of, in the long arc of now what you've seen, and Bitcoin's still young, but it's like we've been able, or folks who have been around as long as you have been able to observe some trends, some cycles, things that change and things that don't. Where are we at right now? Like, was this a natural? Did we have to come to this point with the suit coiners, with the Wall Street kind of embracing Bitcoin to a certain extent, with the ETFs? Like, because to me that does seem like a logical step along this path. Like, of course, if Bitcoin was successful, corporations, nation states, everyone is going to want Bitcoin. But I think what you're getting at, you're not discounting that. You're more so saying, and tell me if I'm putting words in your mouth, that the narrative has become controlled by that faction. Is that correct?
The narrative is that these plebs, the memes, those are not, that Wall Street won't accept these, that you can't be that, that the audience was embarrassing to Wall Street. And that's the same thing of the people, the early users, the early adopters of Apple Macintoshes were more creatives, right? They were not the, they weren't the back office accounting departments that were using, say, the IBM or something like that, the mainframes. So they were more of the hacker mindset. Steve Jobs was a hacker. The same thing with Bitcoin. It was a very hacker mindset. In the early days, it was like hackers. It was Julian Assange. It was the open source. It was the internet freedom. It was very tied to, remember that PIPA, anti-PIPA, SOPA, PIPA. There were these, there were these acts across Europe, and one in the US as well, that they were going to sort of like basically start surveilling things online, right? Your freedom online wasn't going to be so obvious, but they defeated it. But it was very tied to that in the early days, those the more cypherpunk mindset. And then I remember when the first wave of bankers came in, with Barry Silbert was one of the earliest ones. And there was a sort of like the beige khaki suits, pants came in, and then like, you can't have that sort of person on stage. It would be Amir Taki, he's crazy. And then in 2021 at the Miami conference, remember after that, Mike Novogratz said Max Keiser shouldn't ever be on stage at a Bitcoin conference. Mike Novogratz, I'm legitimate, and buy Luna,
Did he get
and
that
have
Luna
the tattoo
removed yet, or does he still have it? Does he still have it on him?
But he's legitimate, right? But Max isn't, right? So that sort of narrative came around of like, you shouldn't listen to those people, and you should listen to these legitimate people who are close to they're respectable. This notion of respectable people, that's always been the main way to bring about spread mediocrity is through respectable people. So middle class thinking, and yeah. So I could see that you could see this right now with Bitcoin falling from 120 something down to. I guess it went to 58 again, right? But where are the memers? Like, unless you have a good meme, there's always a new meme during the crashes, right? And it unites the community. It's gallows humor. And, I always like during the worst of the crashes that we've had, like those are always the like nerve wracking, right? But it's also when you end up giggling uncontrollably at your computer. Why? Because of a new meme. And you're like, oh, right? And you're like, I guess we are going to go all work at McDonald's. Or yes, the Wojak, crying emoji and all of those things. Like those memes came out and they united the community and kept us strong. It was like a way, it was rallying the army, keeping us strong, hold the line, hold the line. But now there isn't any. There's just some Wall Street guys who are very respectable, right? And they start talking about the balance sheet and how this is going to, we're all fine. We're going to be able to meet our dividend and stuff like that. And like, where's the community for that, right? Like, there's no community. This is a mindset. It's a movement. It's a new way of thinking. It's a paradigm shift. It's a new epoch. And yet the storyteller has always been there through history to tell the story, to explain to people where you are. The town crier, the guy in the center of the square in ancient Rome. Like, there's always somebody explaining to the people who they are, where they're going, and keep them on the mission. The keeper of the vision, as Steve Jobs would call it. You need to have somebody who's inspiring the troops that where we're going is there. It seems far away. We're only like a few steps into the march towards there. But the memers were such an important part of that. They've been removed or ostracized or exiled somehow, but they're not there in the community at the moment. And I think that is also by design, whether intentional or unintentional. And I think once you see the memers back, once you have a new meme, I think that's going to be the bottom.
So there was one of the more famous suit coiners had a big $100,000 Bitcoin party in Florida, in Miami. And Stacy noted that the memers were absent.
Yeah.
The memers had not been invited. So the people who memed Bitcoin 200,000 were being cast aside.
Yeah, the laser eyes to 100,000.
Yeah.
None of them were there.
Right. And guys like Yellow and others, who are really brilliant memers, they were not there. And so that was the first indication that there was a changing of mindset. And so, but I think of Bitcoin is going through kind of like reverse archaeology. In archaeology, you're digging down, digging, and you find the past. And, it goes through the history, and it goes through the Bronze Age and the Iron Age and the Stone Age, and you're going progressively back toward primitivism. With Bitcoin, it's a reverse archaeology where the coin is drilling through essentially layer and layer and layer of finance and money and the concept of money and finance. And it finds bigger and bigger pockets of money. So the Wall Street is a pocket of money, and Bitcoin got to the Wall Street pocket of money, and everybody in that milieu, anyone in that band of financialization went through the exact same learning curve as everyone in the previous ages of Bitcoin. So the suit coiners essentially recreated the ICO market. You know, the ICO market was an incredible boom and bust. The staking phase, the NFT phase, the shitcoin phase or altcoin phase, you know, all these things were the trajectory of Bitcoin, the vector. It takes it through, you know, everything that anyone's ever thought about what they think they know about money, and includes everyone on the planet, and everyone goes through the same learning curve. So there's no accumulated knowledge. You know, when I saw one of, you know, I mean, I saw Michael Saylor at a meeting in El Salvador, you know, and his comment to me after I told him, you know, he was surprised that I'm, you know, 65, 66 years old. And he said, well, by now you should have accumulated some wisdom. Right. And I looked at him and I said, hold on, my son. Hold on. Let's talk again and see where this goes.
Do you think Saylor, I will say also, I was invited to the 100K party, and it was a very nice party for what it's worth. I occasionally meme. So there, you know, and I've got to say, I mean, I think that like most of the Treasury stuff has clearly been like a capital incinerator for retail. Like that's undeniable. Strategy, I would put in a bit of a different ballpark, but I'm curious from you guys, like, do you think Saylor's been a net positive for Bitcoin from an adoption perspective? Like, you know, if you want to reach the, you know, the majority of capital in the world, like the majority is still sort of, you know, for better or worse, like it's tied up in the fiat system, right? Or, you know, it doesn't have to be tied up, but it kind of just is. Like, is that just a stepping stone, like a meeting people where they are, not where you want them to be, that was a necessary transitional phase? Or do you think about it differently?
I think the adoption happened one conference at a time, one Bitcoin meetup, one Bitcoin conference at a time. And as they got bigger and bigger, and the incentive model changed, of like it became a big, you know, profit center to even put on conferences, right? And then it becomes more and more expensive, and you get bigger and bigger venues, and then you need more and more crypto companies, and they all get a slot on the stage, and then you get to the Bitcoin treasury companies, and what the incentive structure for the CEO. These are publicly listed companies now because they SPACed into these, reverse merged into these existing entities. So now they have a fiduciary responsibility to their shareholders, and they must go and pump their stock price. So you have to then, it's just the incentive model. That's from the beginning of the time in the early Bitcoin conferences, we would talk about the incentive model, right? And the stock price, if you're a CEO of a publicly listed company, you have to pump your stock price when you go up on stage, and you don't tell people, don't buy my stock price, buy Bitcoin instead. You're telling them to buy exposure. So you have to come up with a pitch, right? And what you're giving them exposure to is just one part of Bitcoin, and that is the number go up technology, which is a great way. That's a great tool for adoption since the beginning of Bitcoin, right? When it goes on a tear during the 4-year cycle, you know, it drives memes, it drives headlines, which drive awareness, which drives adoption. So that is a super amazing part of Bitcoin, but it's just one small part, and probably the least important part for the actual technology itself, what it means for an individual. It is, I think, the loudest part of it in terms of communicating to the world, like, hey, get on board, and adoption. But so you're offering exposure just to the price, and you're offering exposure in US dollars, in fiat, to that price. But you're not offering exposure to individual sovereignty, right? You can't be exposed to individual sovereignties. You're either you either have individual sovereignty or you don't, and you can only have it if you hold permissionless money, right? So you can't sell it's not permissionless money. A stock certificate is not permissionless. There's a lot of permissions and a lot of regulations around it. So your incentive is to push just that one bit of it, which is number go up. And therefore, you're not talking about the other parts of it, which are so important. Maybe the number go up is most important for driving adoption in terms of awareness that leads to adoption. But I think holding that mindset of hodling is really important to the long-term sustainability of Bitcoin. And that only comes with hodling it, right? So you have to hold it. You have to have individual sovereignty. You have to own your own permissionless money in order to become a hodler, become a Bitcoiner. And so you raise awareness in the price, and then it becomes but then what happens, right? Because you're just focused. It's a piece of paper. It's a stock price exposed to something that's going up. But hey, then NVIDIA goes up faster. And Micron goes up even faster. And so those are paper that you're going to make more paper gains with those. So why go to this other paper price thing? And so you see what I'm talking about is like you're pushing people just to focus on the price because that's the thing that you can point to. But the technology itself, unless it's being used by all those individuals getting exposure to the price, then it's not being adopted. Like it would be the same of like if everybody in the world didn't own a computer or go on the internet, but they had the ETF of internet companies. It's like, well, people actually have to use it. They actually have to build the community, build the networks, build the infrastructure in order for the internet to succeed. If you just created an ETF from day one of like a TCP/IP, I'm like, let's just like have an ETF about this. Like, it's like, well, no, you need all that sort of thing to happen to create the network effect, to make it valuable, and all the other benefits of TCP/IP besides just like the network value.
Yeah, and he has said a couple of things that go against really the ethos of Bitcoin. Just to name two things, when he was suggesting that self-hodling is overrating, self-custody is overrated, that having an outside custody is equally as good. Well, clearly that's completely wrong and gets away, as Stacy points out, if you want to separate money from state, if you want to be individually sovereign, if you want to take the full benefit of everything Bitcoin has to offer, self-custody is obviously a superior form of custody, and it's unique as an asset class in that sense that you can self-custody an unlimited amount of wealth in Bitcoin at virtually no expense. You can't do that with gold. You can't do that with housing. You can't do that with any other asset in the world. It costs, you have insurance. You have to put it someplace that's secure. You have to pay for the security. And it's very expensive to be wealthy. It costs a lot of money to maintain it. But with Bitcoin, you can have $1 billion and its cost of protecting it is virtually nothing. So that's a very unique attribute that you don't get with any other asset class. And he also mentioned, he said essentially he was inferring that Bitcoin is not money, right? He was saying that his securities are money. But Bitcoin itself is not money. And again, that's a blatant disregard for the ethos and the actual reality of Bitcoin being perfect money, the only money, the predator money, the apex predator of money, right? So those, just on those 2 points, ideologically, he's not aligned with Bitcoin.
Well,
right?
but the point is that there's no there's no counterpoint. There's no conversation. There's less conversation happening now because everything is financialized in a fiat way. So whether it's the conferences or the podcast is like there's the financial incentive is to get paid in the fiat dollars that these people can print, right? And so there isn't a counterpoint. Now that Matt Odell is back on Bitcoin Twitter and able to engage and debate, it's important to have these debates, right? Like this is what early Bitcoin conferences were about. There were lots of debates, and nobody knew what Bitcoin. Nobody still, I think Jameson Lopp is the one that always he has a article that he links to all the time. Is that nobody understands Bitcoin? Nobody does. Not one single person does. So it's still a conversation. It's an ongoing conversation, and it's evolving with us. And that's so we need to evolve in the right direction, right? And I think. Number go up technology only works for a brief period of time, one cycle. But if the community and the network does not continue to grow, then that becomes a problem for number go up technology. If it's all hoarded on one balance sheet, where everybody gets exposure only to the number go up and not to the actual technology and the freedom money, then that's going to become a problem. And I think we are seeing that right now because we need a floor, right? If we need to, who are the new buyers to come in? Who is the new community? The community begets the community normally, but the community has disappeared. The storytellers are the memers. They're one of the storytellers. The podcasters are another storyteller. The speakers on stage at Bitcoin conferences are another part of the storytellers. So it's all become homogenized very quickly. And it's like that period of time when Apple was run by a few suits. The same thing happened then in that same 4-year cycle. They destroyed the company because they did not have a narrative and they didn't know who their audience was and they didn't know how to sell the technology, the profound change that a Macintosh was offering. It was a mindset that they were selling, and it was a way of living.
Yeah, I mean, you see the same pattern emerging with private equity. Private equity takes over established brands and ruins them. Whether it's fast food restaurants get taken over by private equity and they're driven into the ground and destroyed. They're loaded up with debt and the quality goes down. They go bankrupt and the bankers made a lot of money and the franchise goes out of business. And you see that happening all across America. Most of the products that you own, especially in the supermarket, you remember the brand, you remember how great they were a couple of years ago, you buy them, and this doesn't taste anything like it did a few years ago. It's because private equity took over the company, made substitutions on the ingredients and turn it into slop like everything else there on the shelf. So the brand equity is worth X. Private equity borrows money to acquire that brand. They extract them with a huge dividend to themselves and substitute the ingredients and sell an inferior product until it goes bankrupt. So essentially with strategy, it's similar in that the melting ice cube was an interesting idea. You're replacing, instead of buying back your own stock, you're just going to replace the cash on the balance sheet with Bitcoin. But then it became essentially private equity-tized in that they loaded it up with debt, right? So they loaded it up with these debt-bearing instruments. And then what I think was the miscalculation was that once you do that, you're exposing yourself to the ability of Wall Street to issue its own fake paper, right? Wall Street can issue an unlimited amount of fake paper at zero cost. And so that's the squeeze that we're seeing right now between Bitcoin and strategy, because the
hedge funds are after them.
Right? They've got 600 and something thousand Bitcoin. Okay. So let's fucking choke this company so that they've got to cough up some of that Bitcoin, which they're now doing. And then they'll put it into their corporate notes that they have the ability now to sell Bitcoin, something they said they would never, ever do. So that's engineered by the hedge funds and the other big, very large pockets of money that are able to arbitrage what is an obligation of the company to pay dividends, their ability to do so, and what's sitting on the balance sheet. So they're attempting to get the company to choke.
Yeah, that's the thing. Remember what happened to the United Kingdom when Soros broke the pound, right? The British pound. It was because the exchange rate mechanism, they had to peg it to the franc or something, the Deutschmark, and they figured they could break it because they had enough money that they knew that the UK would not be willing to pay the amount of money to cover what they could just push the exchange rate to bleed them dry, and they knew that they would have to stop printing money to do this. So it's not, they weren't taking any sort of position. They just saw a vulnerability that they could exploit. And the same thing. So as soon as you do enter Wall Street, and as soon as you do have a paper product upon which they could bet against and tear apart your par or your peg, like, they'll do it. And it's that's what you're seeing. They do have unlimited amounts of money because they are able to do all sorts of leverage games through options and derivatives themselves, that they're way faster, and they don't have like shareholders to have to explain this to. Like the problem with the Bitcoin treasury companies, and like all of them, will be that they have, they've sold their shareholders on the story of number go up technology and gold 2.0. And, you think of gold as a safe investment, a safe haven, and blah, blah, blah. It's a soft, like, gentle pitch. And in the meantime, these sharks, like, with trillions of dollars of access to, at least for a day, that's all they need it for, is a few hours to just like annihilate your peg or your par, your attempt to be at par. And you have to go out there as a CEO and try to explain to your shareholders, oh, it's just these hedge fund guys and, they're doing this. And you're like, yeah, but is this going to, like, are you going to be able to hold this peg or to par or whatever? So you are in a game where you are swimming in an ocean with great white sharks, and they might eat you up, and maybe they didn't, had nothing against you, but you kind of looked like a seal, and so they ate you. And they tell you all the time when somebody gets eaten by a great white shark, it's like, oh, they don't really like the taste of humans. And it's like, yeah, but they still ate that human. It's like, yeah, it was a mistake. It's like, well, yeah. that was my entire net worth. Thank you very much,
Right. So you can sell Bitcoin short and use the proceeds from that short sale to go attack some company like Strategy. Right. So, and you can do that. And in the UK, you can rehypothecate an infinite number of times. Right. You're not limited in the number of rehypothecations. You can sell the same bond in the UK 100 times, 1,000 times. There's no limit to the rehypothecation in the UK. In the US, there is. So that's why the US outsources a lot of their banking maneuvers to the UK. That's what the UK has served that purpose. In the city of London, of course, is its own country with its own laws and its own governance, just like the Vatican. And there's one other city, Washington, D.C. Those three territories are countries within countries. The city of London has always been where bankers and hedge funds go to commit what in the United States would be illegal financial leisure domain. So those guys are there, and they see an opportunity to borrow an infinite amount of money against, let's say, selling Bitcoin short and engaging in all kinds of other flora and fauna in financial engineering, and attack what they want to do. Ironically, remember when the strategy melting ice cube was launched, it was a speculative attack against the U.S. dollar.
Yeah.
Right? That we're going to essentially take on the U.S. dollar by borrowing to buy Bitcoin. Okay, that's a simple equation. But once you add this stack of preferreds with interest-bearing obligations, you then become the victim. The speculative attack is against you, and I think
but that's the point. Is even from day one, when it's just the melting ice cube, and I think, to be fair, you have to say that SpaceX and Square both have that original design of a Bitcoin treasury within a company with an operating income and using their revenue to buy Bitcoin, or there's cash on the balance sheet to convert some of it from a melting ice cube to Bitcoin. But it is a stock price, and every single stock price is vulnerable to the great white sharks, the predators in the ocean of paper in that system. So that is a risk that you don't have when you're holding your own Bitcoin. So as soon as, even if it's an ETF, okay, maybe they have a little bit easier time, less risk than one of the Bitcoin treasury companies, But there's still a risk because the hedge funds have unlimited capital and they could attack things through options and the futures markets and stuff like that. So you're always going to be there's however much the risk is, there is an added risk. It might only be small in the case of an ETF versus a Bitcoin treasury company, but there's a risk that you maybe are not being adequately compensated for because you don't understand the risk.
Right. So the future question is, who is going to step in and be the new source of demand?
Yeah.
Okay. So strategy was the demand side of the Bitcoin story for 5 or 6 years. It was the Saylor era. And now the vulnerabilities in the strategy have been exposed. And so they're not really big on the demand side as they were. In fact, they're sellers. Okay, after saying that they would never sell. So we have to look for a new source of demand. So you have the sovereigns, the big sovereigns, potentially in the Middle East. You have there's a dynamic between AI and Bitcoin, where it's like Bitcoin is the floor and AI is the ceiling. And we know that the AI sector is trading at incredible valuations, multi-trillion dollar valuations. If we see a reversal in that trend, I would believe that a substantial portion of that retracement of capital would end up back in Bitcoin. Because Bitcoin would be the only and AI agents, the agentic economy itself, AI agents themselves, according to Bitcoin Policy Institute in Washington, D.C., when they did the survey, they prefer Bitcoin. So the robots are buying Bitcoin. The AI prefers Bitcoin.
Yeah, but there's no I do a lot of the AI policy in El Salvador, and so I'm very exposed to the AI world and community. And the AI community is way more cypherpunk than a lot of the Bitcoin community at this time.
Totally.
You see the EAC, they're like how original cypherpunks and OG Bitcoiners were, right? So that the vibe, that mindset of renegade and cypherpunk is with the AI community at the moment because they are inspired by the beauty and the power of individual sovereignty of their own locally hosted model, right? Like they see AI as a path to abundance, amazing abundance, right? And that is a liberating mindset. And that's why they have an infectious community. It feels really nice. And actually AI has a lot of really funny memes, right? That's where you'll find funny memes. If you find the right AI community on AI Twitter, you'll see the funny memes. But Bitcoin is become very middle class thinking. It's just a number on a Schwab screen, a Fidelity stock portfolio report. And it's only focused on that number go up technology. And they forget the rest of the technology and the importance of it. And again, I'll bring it back to Matt Odell. It's his fault. I blame him. Okay. Let's start a campaign. Let's make that the meme. It's Matt's fault.
I'm going to get that on a t-shirt, I think. Maybe a hat too.
Well, it brings it back to El Salvador because El Salvador was very early recognizing AI as a technology of infinite abundance and liberation. And Stacy, as she pointed out, she is involved in much of the policies that are happening in El Salvador with AI. And so the country has the first AI law, really. And it also has a statement of a strategy,
National AI Strategy
National
Report.
AI Strategy Report, which is now being quoted by other countries as they catch up. So El Salvador again is leading the way, and other countries are catching up to El Salvador. So it's part of that freedom stack.
Yeah, it's because I saw that same vibe. Like I could see on my Twitter, stream is that on the timeline I could see like that same mindset of this that sort of like we could do anything, you could just do things mindset, and the tools like AI, the AI tools available, especially since DeepSeek, when it like drove down the costs of these frontier models for all the models, but all sorts of tools also started to be released from January. And you know what? Jack Dorsey also mentioned it, that he mentioned it in an interview. He didn't say what it was the cause of it, but he mentioned that January 2025, everything changed. And if you were following AI or doing anything in AI, you saw it, like you felt it. Something clicked, just like in March 2020 with Bitcoin when they shut down the global economy and first Bitcoin crashed. Remember, like on BitMEX, it crashed like 20 something percent one day, and then it went up forever after that, right? So something happened in January 2025, and you got goosebumps watching it. You could see it like suddenly take off, and the community was that same like yeehaw, pioneer, cowboy, like cypherpunk, fun loving, like memeing, like that attitude, that confidence of like when you know you can just do things, that gives you a lot of confidence. And Bitcoiners used to have that. Like we were like, dudes, like we have our own money. And even on a day that it would crash, like, okay, it's crashed 90% in the past year, 18 months. You'd be like, dude, I have my own money. And they're like, yeah, dude, you're poor. Like you have Bitcoin, you're poor. It's down 90%. You're like, I don't care. Like I have Bitcoin and you don't. And you're like, oh my God. That attitude of just total confidence and because you know what you own, you know what you have, and you know the power that this technology has given you. And that's what I feel like. I mean, I don't want to blame any one individual, and I'm sure like best intentions, and many people thought they had like found an infinite money glitch and that this was like somehow unique and just if I do this honestly. But over the course of time, the incentive model and this incentive structure breaks down because a network needs the whole network, right? And you need all the feedback loop that made Bitcoin what it is, and that includes these annoying community who, despite all of the the elite media sorts and the respectable officials telling them, dudes, you have fake internet money. You are like you have nothing. You're like, I've got Bitcoin. And the same thing with these, EAC community. They're like, no matter how much you mock them, they say they're going to Mars and it's going to be amazing abundance. And you're like, okay, well, they're convinced. And you're missing that right now from the new bees being brought. That newbie community is always very important, right? Everybody starts out a newbie in Bitcoin, but where are the new newbies? Have you ever met a newbie in the past, this cycle? No, there are no newbies, right? They're they're somebody with a Schwab account, like with a bunch of stocks. And that's not a Bitcoiner, right?
Yeah, to bring it back to El Salvador, El Salvador has managed to be in the leader of this whole frontier mindset of AI, where the whole rules of the game are changing almost on an hourly basis. But because El Salvador is being led by President Bukele, who is able to look at the field, is like, Tom Brady, I'd use another sports analogy. I mean, he can pick apart the defense, find a receiver and, get that ball to the receiver and get a touchdown. Where, President Bukele will look out over 50, 60, 70 advisors or people that are coming in with ideas and things and be able to pick, this is, and understand which one gives him the biggest bang for his buck. And you can't print money in El Salvador. You got to be really strategic, got to be really precise, you got to be laser focused. And so he really picked up on this AI story and has been able to attract fantastic developments in the AI story as a result. And that's part of this freedom stack. And it's very, very attractive when you stack all this stuff up and you put it all together. It all is self-reinforcing, and it attracts more talent. It attracts capital, and then your primary job of keeping the country secure and safe from gangsters is being fulfilled, and it all comes together.
Yeah, and again, a reminder that if you're buying a piece of paper that gives you exposure to Bitcoin, you're also gaining exposure to Jane Street. So, if you don't know who Jane Street is and you don't know who the other hedge funds are and the predators in the markets, then you're not understanding what you've bought exposure to. Like, you're not just buying exposure to number go up technology. You're buying exposure to quite a few other things that are very scary. Dun dun dun. You should, every time you buy any stock anywhere, you should hear that in your mind and just understand that it could be inflated away or predated away.
How important do you think medium of exchange adoption acceleration is for Bitcoin to achieve what we all know it can and will achieve? How important do you think that medium of exchange side is, both on, merchant adoption wise? Like, what I think one of the most bullish things I saw like in the past year was Square turning on Bitcoin acceptance for millions of merchants, like getting that merchant side adoption. But how crucial do you think that is? Because it feels like especially in this Bitcoin treasury company era in which we find ourselves, the whole medium of exchange side has just, people seem to not want to. Now, meanwhile, we've got people who are zapping sats to me permissionlessly on Nostr as we stream this live. So shout out to all of you guys. There are still some people out there who want to use Bitcoin as a medium of exchange.
Send more sats.
Yeah, well, you got to take it a step further. You got to take it a step further to the circular economy. Yeah. Which again is, we see it in El Salvador, people that are earning in Bitcoin, saving in Bitcoin, and spending in Bitcoin. So for example, if the price movement it becomes invisible, if you're saving, earning, and spending in Bitcoin, the price movement means nothing because you're in the Bitcoin economy. It's a circular economy. So that started at Bitcoin Beach famously, which kicked off the entire Bitcoin phenomenon in El Salvador, but it's now spread to several other communities all over the country, and they're popping up everywhere. So I would imagine at some point they're all going to kind of emerge, and that's how you really get Bitcoin country. You really get a Bitcoin economy. That's people are earning, spending, and saving in Bitcoin, and that's your medium of exchange, your savings rate, and what you're making as earnings, and it becomes the standard, and it replaces everything else.
I think a little bit, yeah. If you're earning Bitcoin, then it's easier to spend it. But Gresham's law exists, and if you're earning dollars and you are using those dollars to acquire some, Bitcoin and hodl it in your own wallet, you're reluctant to spend it when you have shit money, right? Like, and I've seen that even say with bitcoinhistorico.com. Go to our website, bitcoinhistorico.com, and you can buy your ticket for the conference. Now, last year we were offering, it was something like 20% cheaper to buy Bitcoin, to pay for your ticket in Bitcoin. And I thought, like, okay, at one time it used to be very difficult to get Bitcoin and then transfer and pay instantly or something like that. But Cash App exists. Like, you could just go use your Cash App wallet, convert the ticket price from your dollar account to Bitcoin and pay in Bitcoin and get 10% off. Nobody wanted to do that. They would rather pay 10% more to spend in dollars, right? So I don't know where it had to go. Maybe it would be like 50% more, and people would rather just pay. That might have been the point. If you had a 50% discount for them to pay in Bitcoin, maybe that would have been enough. But that's what merchants will have to do. It is perfect money. And so if you, the merchant, it's up to you. It's not just like, if you make it equal, if you say, here, this cup of coffee is $10 US dollars, fiat dollars, or $10 worth of Bitcoin, they're going to pay the $10 in fiat cash. Of course they are. But if you say it's $10 cash, or I really want your Bitcoin, I'll give that same cup of coffee to you for $5 worth of Bitcoin. So that's, once you start seeing like clever people, merchants becoming clever, that's how it happened with the Florentine, right? The Florin in Florence, right? So they had the perfect unit of account that was trusted. So if a merchant from Florence traveled to North Africa to buy in a Medina some, fabrics or spices, the merchant there would be like, oh, I recognize that, and I know I won't have to waste my time, lose some sales by measuring it, weighing it, and checking it out, and making sure, like, I'll just take that here. You're giving me the perfect money the best money available in our ecosystem and our financial system, and I'm going to give you my best product. Right? So because I want you to return, because I know you have good money. So I want you to return with your good product or purchase my stuff. And so that's how you attract people. You want to like offer them, like, I'll give you a discount if you give me your Florin, if you give me your Bitcoin, right? So until you see that, like it's a mindset that the merchants have to adopt. They're still in the fiat mindset. If they're saying $10 in fiat or $10 worth of Bitcoin, that I think they're the ones that are thinking wrong.
Yeah, good point. I mean, there is, I think that some major retailers are figuring this all out. There's one called Sheets.
Yeah.
Which is like a roadside convenience store chain. I believe that they're offering discounts.
50% discount. Yeah.
Seriously.
And it's really good right now because it's called Sheets, and there's a new parasite going around giving people explosive diarrhea. So if you have explosive diarrhea, stop at Sheets and you'll get 50% off your Pepto-Bismol.
I can't tell if this is a bit or not. Like you're telling me there's explosive diarrhea and it's called Sheets. Like, boy,
there is a gas station called Sheets. And
that's awesome.
I don't know if it's out where you are up north, but it's definitely on the southeastern U.S. And it's some weird people hang out there, but you know what? They're offering a 50% discount on a lot of stuff if you buy it in Bitcoin.
Yeah, that's just a news story that the New York Post had this afternoon. This explosive diarrhea is making a huge.
It's true
in New York and other states, and it just so happens that we were also talking about the Sheets. This chain.
It's just a coincidence, I'm sure.
At the same time,
if you have the Sheets, then stop at Sheets. Yeah. Pick up your Pepto-Bismol. You can buy it for 50% off if you pay in Bitcoin.
Part of the Orange Pill podcast genius coming through into your podcast.
Sorry, we always go there. We always go into the toilet humor.
Super entertaining.
I'm a fan of it. Okay, Max and Stacy, I've kept you guys a little bit long, and I sincerely appreciate
past our
you
bedtime.
Yes,
I know. Can I ask you one more question that actually Jimmy Song had posted in the Nostr chat, which is. He said, we know that El Salvador has changed a lot, but how has El Salvador changed you? Which I thought was perhaps a nice way to end things on.
Well, it's changed me so much because I see the individual lives transforming. All of my students at Kubo Plus, Kubo AI, who many of them end up working at Bitcoin office or the Anya AI, National AI Agency, to be able to just do things and have an impact that in so many ways, not only we are planting seeds that some of them are actually bearing fruit now with my students that I taught 4 years ago. And by the way, UNESCO recently just did a report on El Salvador they studied El Salvador for about 6 or 7 months. They were on ground in country. And one thing they found, they were looking at AI readiness for El Salvador. And what they found was, they found Jimmy Song, because 4 years ago, Jimmy Song came to El Salvador and he taught my first group of students the Bitcoin programming Bitcoin course. And I call them the Jimmy Song 7 because we only managed to find 7 students who were able to pass the quiz he gives to get into the class. Something like 130 applied, only 7 got in. And what the UNESCO report found was that unexpectedly, they said, El Salvador is the #1 country in all of Latin America for quality of open source contributions. And they had no idea, they couldn't explain it, but it was my programs. It's like they all have to contribute to open source projects. And so they all open like their GitHub and they all have to contribute. So, and our office motto and our program motto for Kubo Plus, which is our Bitcoin and Lightning Devs program, is excellence only. So like the report from UNESCO also found that it was the quality of our contributions from El Salvador are 3 times as high as the average for the rest of Latin America. So they were totally baffled about what this possibly could be. But I know that's my flower. Like that's the fruit that I've borne in El Salvador. And I believe, as Max just said, that President Bukele is a 1 in 500 year type leader. And it's amazing. Imagine if you got to be at that table having dinner with Lorenzo the Magnificent and Da Vinci and Machiavelli and all these amazing Michelangelo, all these like amazing the Age of Discovery, all these like amazing adventurers and astronomers and architects and like building this Renaissance, right? Imagine being there. Like that's what we're at right now. We're changing the course of history into a new epoch, and it's fun to be there. And it's really changed me a lot to appreciate why we are even building, why Bitcoin, like why Bitcoin matters. And it matters because of the future of humanity. Max?
It's a tough one to follow.
I have nothing to add to that.
No, you do. He's the poet. He should be able to add something.
Well, I mean, I think that as a production team and as a talent team, one of the roles that I play is the person that's not changing. If I'm like the boomer, and I'm like a tough, I'm like stuck, to create a dynamic type of thing. And in El Salvador, what that means is that I've been kind of changing in the way that I appreciate for a few different things. Like, for example, when there's the idea that governments and all governments are worthless, particularly in the U.S. And Ronald Reagan is like, during that era, that government's too big, you can't have government. Anarcho-capitalism is like, no government, we don't need government. But in fact, if you go back to the founding fathers and the creation of Constitution, Bill of Rights, this type of thing. I mean, the idea of a governance model existing is a reality. You need a governance model to exist, and Bitcoin is one of the strictest governance models ever imagined. And so in El Salvador, you see where a functioning government can actually offer a very sound benefits to the population that's being governed. So the social contract, I guess I would say that the change for me is in rethinking about the social contract. The social contract between the governing bodies and those being governed, and how it can manifest in the 21st century, and how a small country led by a dynamic leader can create freedom in the way that's being done. And so to be there and be a part of that, it's keep an open mind and really try to embrace that, and be like water, like Bruce Lee says, right? To go with the flow. And so it's been just a remarkable eyewitness to history. I think ultimately the bottom line is that this is a chapter in our life and my life where we're actually eyewitnessing an incredibly important piece of history that'll be talked about for hundreds of years. So it's like being right there at the signing of the Declaration, or being in Kitty Hawk, or being at the Apollo lunar launch. We're actually witnessing, and we have a good relationship with folks who are doing all these things. To be an eyewitness is to see it firsthand. It changes. It changes. I guess that what I'm getting at is that the scale of this change, as it's now impacting the world, is enormous. So it's humbling, right? It's kind of a humbling experience, because you're seeing something happen that very few people have ever had this kind of experience, and the profound impact it's having globally is now just being recognized around the world. And so it's a very hopeful expression of humanity, what can be done, what is possible. And
Max invented the Coco Max in El Salvador, and you can come to our restaurant La Cajita in Bitcoin Beach and enjoy the Coco Max. And it really has put El Salvador on the map, this Coco Max drink.
Totally. It made the big difference. It took them over the top. The Coco Max.
It is like the
Coco
Sistine
Maxing
Chapel.
next time I get there.
Yeah, it's the Sistine Chapel of beverages. It's the perfect combination of coconut, grinded up coconut meat, coconut
volcano
water,
coffee.
volcano coffee, and we're going to introduce the Cocoa Max ice cream and Cocoa Max candy bar. Candy bar will have El Salvador chocolate, El Salvador coffee, El Salvador coconuts.
And sugarcane.
It's sugarcane. So you get a quadruple hit of El Salvador shipped anywhere in the world to your local Whole Foods. For $7, you can get a Cocoa Max Choco bar and experience the quadruple hit of El Salvador right there in the aisle 7 of your Whole Foods and be elevated to this posture of greater consciousness without, spending more than $7 or leaving the comfort of your local Whole Foods. So,
and by elevated, he means high as a kite, as with all the chocolate, sugar, and coconut. And,
but it's
coffee.
like you're on top of a volcano, and you can see infinitely into the Pacific Ocean, and see, where the mermaids dancing in the fluorescence of the bioluminescence of fish that can generate their own electricity and light are dancing in the Pacific, and they're all drinking Cocoa Max, and you're there witnessing this on top of a volcano, and you're thinking to yourself, my God, I am in the presence of a higher being, and that turns your soul immortal. You become an immortal. If you wish to become an immortal, come to El Salvador or go to your local Whole Foods, get a Cocoa Max bar, peer out into the Pacific, watch the bioluminescent fish dance with each other, and stack sats.
Yes.
I got to get one of these candy bars. I mean, wow.
We were going to call it that Odell bar.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
And then we changed it now. It became the Choco Max instead.
And remember, somebody needs to create the meme that it's Matt Odell's fault.
Yeah.
Chat, whoever's out there in the Nostr chat right now, I'll zap 5,000 sats to the best it's Matt Odell's fault meme. So yeah, tag me in it.
This is all his fault.
Oh, yeah. Thanks a lot, Odell. Jeez.
Thanks a lot, dude. That's why we don't have real shit.
Okay, this is why we can't.
How
would
nice you say,
things.
like, buy Bitcoin, not that fake shit?
Yeah, there you go. Well, Max, first of all, now I can't stop thinking about tripping out on a Max or Cocoa Max on top of a mountain, staring out in the Pacific and watching the bioluminescent fish dance with each other. Volcano, yes, excuse me. They are
mountain
beautiful.
Was so blasé, so middle class.
Yeah, the most volcanically concentrated activity in the world in El Salvador.
It's wild.
And that also the whole, whether it's tokens like Bitcoin or it's AI tokens that are being circulated in the new 21st century economy and defining the 21st century economy, they're all converting energy into money, essentially, because an AI token is money, and so is a Bitcoin token. So, and then the individual sovereignty and the sovereignty of El Salvador with its geothermal energy capabilities means that we become the AI Bitcoin powerhouse of the 21st century. And that's one of the objectives, because we have an enormous amount of potential geothermal energy, which is the best form of energy. It transformed the economy of Iceland, for example. They were able to export aluminum ingots by transforming their geothermal energy through Alcoa, which is a huge corporation there, into aluminum, which they then can export. So in El Salvador, they can take their geothermal energy, turn it into AI tokens, and then send those tokens around the world, right? So they're exporting you're exporting energy. You're a huge energy exporter because you're exporting AI tokens that were created by local geothermal energy. The same thing with Bitcoin, right? You're mining for Bitcoin. So we are already mining Bitcoin with geothermal energy. So we're exporting that energy around the world. And this gives us sovereignty. Again, it's the sovereign stack. It's the freedom stack. AI, Bitcoin, education, security. You put them all together. You add a Cocoa Max bar on top of that. You smother it in a, as I mentioned the ice cream.
I'm just laughing because when Max and I, during COVID, we started the Orange Pill podcast and we would live stream. And then I would be like, okay, it's been an hour and I guess that's it. And Max would finally wake up then and start talking. And 2 hours later, I'd be like, okay, I'm trying to say goodbye. And as soon as you say goodbye, is the worst time for Max when the camera, the little light on the camera.
Don't go away.
He's like, don't go out.
Now I know the trick. Now I know the trick. Next time I'm just going to be like, okay, that's it. 15 minutes in.
Out and the curtain's closing. I'm like, okay, we're going to stop this by force majeure of my own lexiconic kind of composition.
If you ever want Max to talk, just say, we're about to wrap up, or we're going to cut camera, and he's going to start talking as much as possible so you can't cut.
Exactly. Let me get my thesaurus out immediately and dive into the splendor.
And remember, this is Matt Odell's fault too.
It is.
True.
I'm so glad we have someone to blame now. I've been looking.
I'm going to blame him for everything. If I stub my toe, it's Matt Odell's fault. If I, forget to pay my taxes, it's Matt Odell's fault. Like, he is going to get the blame for everything from now on that goes wrong in my life. And what went wrong in my life for sure in the past 4 years, everything was good. All the stuff we did in El Salvador, except for Bitcoin Twitter, it disappeared. All the memers are gone. And that's Matt Odell's fault.
Yeah.
I blame him. That's it.
It's like Murphy's Law, Sod's Law. It's Matt Odell's Law.
Yeah, the Odell Law. The Odell conspiracy.
No one will remember who he is.
Odell went away, and the memers left.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Odell.
Correlation equals causation. I'm sure of this.
Yeah.
We're gonna need to make T-shirts. We're gonna need to make maybe it's Matt Odell's fault candy bars as well as a secondary line for you guys on top of the Choco Max bars. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm just spitballing.
You know what it will be? The Matt Odell chocolate bar will just be a wrapper and there's nothing in there because it's like that said, buy Bitcoin, not that fake shit. And look, Matt Odell's fault is that he went away and it's all fake shit. So we're going to sell fake shit. It's just going to be cardboard in there.
That's
and it's going to be nothing. It's not going to be a real thing.
The Matt Odell nothing bar. It's 100% nothing. Organic. The organic Matt Odell nothing bar. No ingredients whatsoever.
Wow.
Okay.
Totally
sustainably
organic.
sourced because there's nothing there,
Right.
It's 100% oxygen.
$12 a piece. We've got a $12 margin on that. Oh, yeah. Fantastic. Relive the memeless period of internet drudgery with a Matt Odell nothing bar available for $12 at Amazon or at Whole Foods.
What's the phrase he uses? It's fake shit, right? Like the fake shit bar.
The fake shit bar. There we go.
Yeah, the fake shit bar, all caused by Matt Odell. It's Matt Odell's fault that we all have to eat fake shit bars for the rest of our lives because of him. He abandoned the Bitcoin Twitter community.
Yep. I'm not buying the mea culpa. I think needs to be more penance.
Okay.
It's just not enough to say,
His penance could be he needs to go on tour to every Bitcoin conference and speak. And he should come to Bitcoin Historico, come on stage, and we'll flagellate him. We'll get these,
Flagellate him?
Yeah, what's the word?
It'll work. Sure. Flagellation. Yeah.
We have to go old school.
Yeah.
Get a little cat of nine tails up there, and just give him
that scene in Game of Thrones. Shame.
Yeah, shame. That's it.
Shame.
We'll have him walk up onto stage in the National Palace.
Yeah.
Shame.
Right. He's on all fours with a dog collar.
Yeah.
This just took a turn.
Shame. That's it.
Max was doing the OnlyFans version.
This is the OnlyFans version.
Yeah.
And we'll sell Matt Odell fake shit bars.
Yeah. I love it.
It's fantastic.
I'm into it.
Okay.
I'm into it.
Well,
BitcoinHistorical.com for those who want to see Matt Odell do his shame walk. Is that correct?
Yes, the walk of shame.
Yeah.
We'll promise that. We're going to put that on a poster campaign across the Bitcoin Twitter. And or maybe Nasser now that he abandoned that. So we're going to, go wherever he's not going to yell at us. So now that I know he's back on Bitcoin Twitter, we can't go there and let him know that we're talking about him. So hopefully nobody tells him because otherwise,
keep it a secret.
Whatever you do, guys, don't tell Odell about this. And definitely
don't tell Odell.
Definitely don't tell Odell.
Guy, his buddy, Marty Bent.
Yeah.
What about that guy?
Marty Bent should have kept him on the straight and narrow. Marty Bent stayed on Bitcoin Twitter.
Yeah.
He was loyal to Bitcoin Twitter.
Yep.
But apparently he's not very powerful because it all fell apart. It was Matt Odell. Matt Odell was the one that left and everything fell apart.
That's
so, we have fake shit bars because of him.
Thanks a lot for your fake shit bars, Odell.
Thanks.
we love you, Odell. We love you. We're all looking forward to the the walk of shame. But it's just everyone's got to pay the piper at some point, right? It's just the price of doing business. But
well, I feel like old school. I feel like we're back. We're back. You've given me so much optimism for the future. I have relentless optimism again. I haven't had that for 5 years in Bitcoin. Now I have it. I feel it.
I can feel it. I can feel it. Guys, this is a lot of fun. Now I don't know if I start to say like, and that's a wrap, if Max is going to go off again. Like, I don't even know if I should say
just turn the camera off. Just don't just.
And we're starting for the first time.
It's interesting, because you get through all the, conversation and all the bits you figure you're talking about. You run through the list. It's all very engaging. And then, you start to hallucinate. You start to oxygen starts getting depleted. You start to have delusions. And, to be able to read those, like skywriting in your own unconscious mind, and you just blurt it out, what you see, out there. And it triggers, the stream of consciousness, which if you've been in Bitcoin for 15 years, like we have, you can cough up a lot of interesting blood and guts. And it can be interesting, because we've seen every single thing. We know everybody. We've seen it all. We've experienced the entire panoply of disasters and triumphs for 15 fucking years.
And I just want to say, speaking of fake shit bars, I am convinced that Walker has a filter on his screen to make him look like a hunky tan, like a Fabio. Yep. And Max and I look like
corpses.
Cracker corpses.
Dug up,
It's because I ate 5 Choco Caco Max bars before this. So I'm buzzing. I'm glowing right now. Now I was in the garden sweating before this and then jumped right on in here for a moment. I had to move my sprinkler, guys, when I got back from running around before this.
Yeah.
And then what can I say? The glow has persisted. I feel like I'm in my studio and it's above the garage, and so it's probably the least there's AC in here, like it's not Europe, but boy, it could be colder up here. I'll just say that. So that may be part that. And
it's 5 cold to 10 in our house. We have the AC cranked up. It's like Arctic conditions in here. It's nice.
It's the way to do it. It's the way to do it. Yeah.
It's very hot outside.
You're wearing a turtleneck just to spite the Europeans. Like you're just like, it's so cold in my house. I can just wear a turtleneck. This is actually considered hate speech in Europe.
It could be warmer if this is hate speech. Oh my God, we're gonna be banned on X. Oh my God, they're gonna write to Elon and say that he owes them $5,000 million for allowing us to spew this hate speech.
Heat-related reparations, I think.
To make it worse for French people, we're going to take our Coco Max bar and eat it with ketchup.
Mon Dieu, mon Dieu.
Oh, well, speaking of that, of course, happy 250th birthday, everybody. It's our 250th birthday this weekend coming up, right? So Max and I are going to celebrate with some sparklers and fireworks in the house. So we're going to stay cold, right? And we have a tall ceiling. So we're just going to light them up and send off these firecrackers and.
But it's interesting. Like, I've been alive 20% of the history of the United States.
Dude, shit.
Or more, right?
That's kind of wild.
66.
I think you just
10% is 25, 20, more than 20%. 66, right? So, my parents were alive for, almost half the, so it's a really young country, but
it's a young country for sure.
You really we've participated in something called the United States, which has been an incredible story. But I think that's where El Salvador comes back into it. It's like it's taken the baton of the best that the U.S. was able to achieve, and it's now taking it further.
Hey, grab that mask. I want to show something from the old school days.
Okay.
This is we have this from the early Bitcoin days. This was.
Yes.
Remember I was telling you about the old days? Like this was more like 2013 or 14 era Bitcoin.
Yeah. Anonymous?
Anonymous.
Yeah. A good old Guy Fawkes.
Film? Yeah. November, 5th of November?
Yeah. Remember
V for Vendetta.
V for Vendetta.
Yeah, we got a lot of good books here. Here's
Yeah, those were the days. Those were the days. So we need to bring, now that Matt Odell's back, maybe we might have some new funk return. The funk is back.
It just reminded me of that. Have you ever seen the old Greg video from A Mighty Wind? It was a British sitcom back in the day. Like, I say back in the day, it was like before I was born even, but it's like, there's a if you guys want a nice laugh, you can probably just search for old Greg with 2 G's and have yourselves a nice chuckle while you're lighting off fireworks in the house. What's that?
Where's Grisage?
What happened to Grisage?
Yeah.
Are you saying Greg Zaj?
Yeah.
I call him Grisage.
Grisage. Where is that old potato? I don't know.
I don't know. See, Matt Odell left. It's his fault. Everybody left with him.
And if you happen to light your house on fire with those indoor fireworks, guess whose fault that one is too?
That is totally Matt Odell's fault, right? It's Matt Odell's fault that I look like a cracker right now and a corpse. Because for whatever, it's his fault. Like, I don't look like this in real life. I look way better. I look almost like Giselle, like tan, lithe, and beautiful. Yeah. And but on this camera, whatever Walker's doing, he just is trying to make me look bad. So he looks better. This is
a blame Odell party, not a blame Walker party.
That's Matt Odell's fault.
Okay.
Matt Odell gave him that idea.
Look what we have here. See, this is the Constitution of the United States. And
beautiful.
This is the Bitcoin white paper, right?
You see? The 2 most important documents in history.
Pocket sized.
Yeah, the pocket size. Don't go anywhere.
Yeah, it's Matt Odell's fault that Max won't stop talking either. Like, Max is just like, I might get up and go get some watermelon and turn up the AC. Now that I remember the misery of our European friends, I might turn the AC down to like 60 degrees just to maybe even 50, like 58. 58.
Put on like a down jacket, mate. There we go. 58K.
It has to be 58.
Tell
down
jacket that we never figured out how to turn this thing on.
He ripped us off. I spent $400 on this and I never got it fucking working.
We can never figure it out.
So he sent us another one and we still have it on hello. And it's that's Matt Odell's fault though.
Lucky's here. Hello. Yeah. He's famous.
Look at that chicken.
Bitcoin chicken.
Oh man,
he's the most famous economist. Plucky used to be a central banker.
We should start calling him Matt Odell.
Yeah, that's Matt Odell. That's Matt Odell's cousin, Plucky. Plucky's cousin, Matt Odell.
Plucky looks like this because Matt Odell.
Yeah, it's not Plucky's fault. That's for sure.
It's fake shit bars. He ate fake shit, and that's happened to him. Yeah. So yeah, that's what's going on, and we've kind of gone stir crazy and mad, and we're in this house and freezing cold, and but out of spite for my European friends, I'm going to keep it cold. I'm gonna just get a down jacket and some boots, and I'm gonna.
Well, I'll tell you a funny story. So Max and Stacy, we met in the south of France in 2003.
Oh, yes.
And that was shortly thereafter. They had one of these huge heat.
That was the 2003.
2003.
August.
They had a heat episode. Thousands of French people died.
30,000 French people died that summer.
Right.
In 2003.
We had just met. And so for a date, I took Stacy to a store called Picard, which is a French store. They only sell frozen food. So it's a store that's full of freezers.
Yeah, open freezers.
So I said, I'm going to take you to a place you're going to love, this place. And we went into this Picard and just wandered, for a half hour, 45 minutes to get some of this cool air, opening it up. It's like, oh, look at this frozen fish. You're taking in the cool air.
Yeah.
Right. So that was like the first time a major heat storm hit France in modern times and just wiped huge people out. But that didn't inform them that maybe they should improve their air conditioning or
get
do
the
something.
AC.
That didn't change.
And look, we were sensible Americans, and where did we go? To the place with the freezers.
Yeah.
So we went and got cold, right?
Right.
So and it was actually cold in there. So I don't know. It's
madness.
It's all Matt Odell's fault. I mean, pretty much the heat wave is his fault too, because you can make that argument, that it's like that butterfly flap its wings, and That's what Matt Odell did by abandoning his Twitter handle.
Yeah.
And, he needs to start thinking about these sort of consequences.
That brief
And-
moment in his brain when he said, you know what, I'll just walk away from Twitter. That was the wings of that particular butterfly setting in motion the cosmic synchronicity that resulted in the memes of Bitcoin dying and gave rise to the suit coiners. So he was responsible for the very thing he's critical of. He says, oh, those suit coiners are worthless. Well, you know what? They got traction because you left Twitter, right? So, look in the mirror. This is what's going on here.
You are the butterfly. You are the butterfly, Matt.
If we go by the multiverse theory, do you think there's an alternate pathway, the other side of that butterfly's wings, where he didn't leave, and we're actually already hyper-Bitcoinized?
And that is the perfect world.
Bitcoin's at $10 million right now.
$10 million. There's total Bitcoin adoption.
Yeah.
But that's another shirt to make. You are the butterfly, Matt. You are the butterfly, Matt Odell.
Matt Odell
butterfly bars next. They're very, very, very thin pieces of chocolate. But they're kind of nice. They're like a little crispy.
Yeah, with a hurricane, a whirlwind, a tornado at the end.
Yeah,
and his little butterfly wings.
That's beautiful, man. I think we should work.
Anyway,
on that. I think maybe
let's really genuinely go.
Okay, yeah.
Stacy, I'm okay, and ending live stream now. And that's a wrap on this Bitcoin Talk episode of the Bitcoin Podcast. Remember to subscribe to this podcast wherever you're watching or listening, and share it with your friends, family, and strangers on the internet. Find me on Nostr at primal.net/Walker and this podcast at primal.net/Titcoin. On X, YouTube, and Rumble, just search at Walker America. And find this podcast on X and Instagram at Titcoin Podcast. Head to the show notes to grab sponsor links. Head to substack.com/@WalkerAmerica to get episodes emailed to you. And head to bitcoinpodcast.net for everything else. Bitcoin is scarce, but podcasts are abundant. So thank you for spending your scarce time listening to the Bitcoin Podcast. Until next time, stay free.